My guest today is Jim Mora Jr. He's a good friend, obviously, and he's also responsible for revitalizing my career in 2006. I'll let him tell the story. It actually started on a golf course, and with the needling of his dad, Jim Mora Sr., he finally got convinced enough to give a 46-year-old a chance. Remember the story, Jim?
I do. Is that my golf tournament, right? Down in
Correct.
And you'd come down, and my dad was there, and I'll tell you this, Morten. Those golf tournaments were kind of what made my dad feel whole again. You know, he had always, he's tough. He was a tough guy, and you know that. You played for him. He was tough, and he was hard to deal with at times. But he told me later on, he goes, I wish I'd have got to know my players better. And I think that time with you and some of those other guys really made him feel happy. But he started giving me, trouble. He says, you got to bring Morten back. You got to bring Morten back. And we were able to connect. And I just remember the story. The best story I remember about you with Atlanta, besides when you broke the record, was we were playing Pittsburgh. And I went up to you before the game, and I'm like, hey, Morten Daddy, because you and I knew each other well. And, hey, Morten Daddy, I said, what's your range today? You said, hey, you said JL, I think you used to call me, everyone called me JL. I think I'm good from 50. I think we had the ball like on 32. The 51. And I go, hey, Morten Daddy, you got it in? You go, give it a try. And you run out there and 51 yarder, and it's 1 yard short. And I'm like, well, she knows his leg. And then there's a penalty. We move it up and you kick it through and we win. I believe that was the story. But I tell that all the time, how you were like so exacting with everything you did. And I'm glad my dad didn't convince you and me to reunite in Atlanta. That was awesome. I'll never forget the night you broke the record. I mean, it's one of my great memories. That was
special. Yeah, that was great against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Given the jersey, they stopped the game briefly. Not really. We had just scored, and Vick was a quarterback. And I just had Vick on the show, Jim, and I want to get your take on it before I talk a little UConn with you. My first impression of Michael, and I told him this to his face, as I was interviewing him, and I would love to hear your opinion on Michael Vick. He was so immensely talented. But in 2006, when I came into that locker room, I think in the third week of the season, his locker was next to mine, and my locker was full of Geritol. There was a wheelchair. There was a wheelchair in front of it. I mean, the guys were having some fun with me, but Michael had this hoodie on. He's sleeping in his locker, and I'm just looking at the warning signs, going, "This doesn't look good for a starting quarterback." And I told Mike, I said, "I wish I had done more for you in 2006, and maybe we could have avoided some of these things that happened later on. Maybe not." But he said, well, that's water under the bridge. But in your opinion, as a head coach, having a talented guy like Michael Vick, did you see some warning signs, and were there stuff that you wish you had done in hindsight to help him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, there were warning signs. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention to them. And I really liked Mike as a human being. I thought he was a really good person, and I thought he was a really good player. I had no indications that he was doing what he was doing off the field. No. With regards to the dogs. I knew that he'd go home to Virginia every once in a while. But I liked him, and maybe was blinded by the fact that I felt, a real sense of connection to him. I wish more, as I look back, that I'd have been more firm and direct with him, maybe walked into that situation more eyes wide open. It was my first head coaching job. And I was hard on the guys early, softened up a little bit by the time you got there, was probably a little bit too lenient with Mike. And I think that he would have benefited from me being more firm early, and I would have benefited from it also. But, I never saw the indicators that he was doing the things that he was doing off the field. And, Morten, I think he's grown tremendously from that, in my opinion. And I hope you share that. I did an interview with Mike when he signed with the Eagles, and it was for NFL Network. And I went and it was my first really kind of on-air interview. And I sat with him for over an hour. And I felt that he'd transformed. And I stay in touch with him, and I still feel good about him. I used to tell people, Morten, I said, the way I felt about Mike when I was with the Falcons, if he wanted to babysit, if I needed a babysitter and he was available, I'd let him babysit my kids, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I still feel that way. I think he's got a great heart. I think he just got going in the wrong direction with the wrong people at the wrong time and didn't realize, you know, really who he was and the stature that he had. You know, I saw him one time, we were at the gas station. It was around the holidays and he's getting ready to go to the mall and he's got like Falcons gear on. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, I got my, and he had his hood up. He goes, I got my hood up. I don't want him to see where I am. I go, you got a Falcons jacket on, man. You know, I mean, they're going to know who you are, you know, but, hey, listen, we live and we learn, and I'm grateful for all those opportunities because I think they led me to where I am now. I just wish that I wish I could have been there more for Mike in a more profound and demanding way and helped him more back then.
Yeah, and where you are now is UConn, and you're looking husky, Jim. You're looking husky.
Look at. You see that? And I got the Nike. I've never been with the Nike team. I got my Nike gear, but you know, Morten, I was at the University of Washington Husky. Now I'm a UConn Husky. So our guy Mark is excited.
I know, but I do need to. I need to keep it real, Jim. I need to keep it real, and so keep to just give the listeners a context on how bad UConn football has been since losing in the Fiesta Bowl in 2010. The Huskies are 31-88. They had unsuccessful attempts at joining both the ACC and Big 12 since the Big East folded as a football conference. They were one of a few teams in all of college football on any level to completely forego the 2020 season because of COVID. They're currently competing as an independent with no football conference affiliation. And they lost to an FCS school earlier this season, Holy Cross, for the first time since 2001, which was only their second year at the FBS level. So that looks like.
Why do you have to put it that way, Mort? Let's talk about the positive.
Here comes the question, right? Here it comes, buddy. The floor is yours. Tell us why you think UConn can one day win a national championship in college football, and why are you sitting in Connecticut right now?
Well, Morten, that's a good question, and it's a long answer. But I'll tell you this: that we're on the mat right now a little bit, but I think there's hope here. You know, Morten, I love to coach football. I've been out of it for a few years as I, watched my kids grow, and my youngest son, I wanted to spend more time with him. They'd made sacrifices for me through the years, and I had an opportunity as I was getting paid by UCLA to kind of take some time, work at ESPN, and be around my youngest son. My others had gone to college already, but my youngest son more, and not ask him to move. And so I took that opportunity. And then, I spent a lot of time back here in Connecticut when I was with ESPN. And when this job came open, it was intriguing to me. I'd been on campus. I'd seen the facilities. I knew that it was a national brand with basketball and really not football. And I knew they were down, but I'd been around the team a little bit. And I think that there's a reason for hope. There's a lot of support in this state. We have an outstanding athletic director in David Benedict. He and I really connected. He came up to Idaho, to Sun Valley, where I live, and we spent about a week together. And I talked to the governor. I talked to, some of the key supporters of UConn football, ex-players, people in the business community. We talked about how we can get this thing going back in the right direction. And everything they told me resonated with me. And it was another opportunity for me to coach. There's only one way for us to go, and that's up. And I think we've got a roster of kids that are anxious to turn this thing in the right direction. We certainly have to do a great job of recruiting. We have to hire a great staff, but the facilities are there, the support's there. There is a talent base. I think it's going to take a development of a mindset of a champion, which you have, you know very well. I constantly tell these kids, I've been very fortunate to coach about 28, 29, 30 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And it was really, to me, more about their work ethic, their approach, their mindset, the standard they held themselves to, and their teammates to, that made them great. The talent level was, probably pretty equal with the guys that were just, guys that stuck around for a while, but the special ones did it differently. And it started with their heart, and it started with their head, and it started with their mindset. And I'm just trying to impress that upon the kids. And I think if we can do that, Morten, that we can change things here. And I'm not saying we can do it right away. It's a process we have to go through. But Morten, I love to compete. I love to coach. I love these young men. I love being on a college campus. And this was an opportunity that I just didn't want to pass up. And I'll tell you, I've been here 1 week and I'm so glad. I'm so happy. I'm so thrilled. I'm motivated. And I'm blessed to be the head coach at UConn. And I'll tell you what, when I say that, people laugh and they go, "You're blessed to be the head coach at UConn," especially after what you just said. But I truly feel that way.
I was just lending context to where you're at and the challenge ahead of you. Do you see yourself as a turnaround guy, as a fixer? You went to UCLA, similar situation. They had struggled a little bit. You had great success there at UCLA. And, is that kind of your mindset going in? Are you looking for programs that need a boost?
Yeah.
Or,
Morten,
I kind of see you as a scrapping guy.
Yeah, I'll scrap. So when I took over Atlanta, and you had already left Atlanta by that time, and but they were 5-11, and we went 11-5, won a playoff game, and went to the NFC Championship my first year there. It wasn't me; it was all of us. As you know, it takes a team. When I went to UCLA, I think the year prior they'd won 5 games, and we came in and we won 9, and we went to the Pac-12 championship game. So. Those 2 stops were pretty successful pretty quickly. I don't know that it's going to be exactly that easy here, but I'm not saying it's not going to be either. It's never easy. Easy is a bad word to say quickly and turning it around. I think we have to go through the processes. Like I told you, Morten, it's going to be about building the talent base. And it's about creating the right mindset. And that's a champion's mindset, which you have. It's a Hall of Fame mindset, which you have. And it's going to be really important that these guys embrace what I ask them to do in terms of the commitments that they make. And if they do that, I think we can be okay.
You grew up in a football family. Your dad, of course, was my coach with the Saints. You alluded to the fact that he's different than you. He is. I mean, that's not a bad thing or a good thing. It just is. He's an ex-military guy. He's tough. He's and maybe him looking back now, he wished he had a little more personal interaction with his players, as you were saying. But growing up in a football family with a dad who had entered coaching, was it a deliberate choice by you to kind of get your feet wet away from him initially and then join him in New Orleans? Was that your circumstance?
Morten, that was more circumstance than anything, but I would not have joined him had I not felt like I was ready. I'd spent 8 years in the NFL by the time I got to New Orleans, and I felt I was prepared, and he obviously did. He wouldn't have hired me if he didn't think I was ready. He, as you said, he's a tough guy. He's gentle now. I mean, he's really softened, Morten, and but he's still got that integrity and that toughness in him. But I think that growing up, I didn't really want to be a coach. I wanted to be in management. And so I went to the Chargers right out of college from the University of Washington and took a job with Don Coryell, old Eric Coryell, and Dan Fouts was there, and Rolf Benerschka. I don't know if you know that name. Great kicker.
Of course.
Yeah. Kellen Winslow and a bunch of great ones. Charlie Joyner, who's a fellow, and Kellen and Charlie are in the Hall of Fame with you, as is Dan. So they're your teammates in the Hall of Fame. But I got there and I just was naturally pulled towards coaching, and it just became, I think it was just ingrained in me, and I loved it. And I got that chance to make some moves and work up my way up the ladder, and I'm grateful for that. My dad had a huge influence on me, and I'll tell you this, Morten, and maybe he's told you this, but I think one of his biggest regrets was the day that he and Jim Finks let you walk out of that New Orleans Saints office.
Well, Jim was gone. Jim had passed.
Jim was, well, then it was my dad.
It was Kuharich and Jim Miller and
I know he regrets that. You're such a part of that franchise's history, and you made us what we were. And I'll never forget you and Tommy coming into my office back there in those old ugly facility on Mondays, and you grading yourselves, and you actually, just so everyone knows, Morten shared his grading form and his mental preparation format with my kickers at UCLA. And I'm proud to say,
Mr. Molson.
Yeah, and I'm proud to say on your behalf, Morten, that JJ Molson and Kaimi Fairbairn, both of who I had talked extensively about you with, are both playing in the NFL. You know, JJ's, I think, on the practice squad or injured reserve with Green Bay, but
I didn't know that.
Killing
That's
it in
great.
Texas. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so you know, you had a huge impact on me in terms of what work ethic looks like, and I appreciate that.
You know, I always was just a stickler for like the details and for feedback and for writing things down. I think things take on a bigger meaning when you write them down.
Oh, I agree.
One thing is to listen and let it resonate, but really, if you write it down, it becomes important to you because it's your handwriting. It's like you take ownership of that, and I think that's the number one lesson I teach my guys is write things down, take notes. You know, how you feeling. Daily log. It doesn't have to be a 3-page synopsis. It just has to be something that resonates with you. Same with when you talk about a pre-kick routine, and I'm sure you have a routine, the way you coach, the way you do it on game day, the way you set up the structure of your practices and so forth. It has to resonate, number one, with you. And then are you able to communicate that to the rest, right? So I would be very interested in hearing your philosophy on coaching. You say you want to get, you got 2 things to do, right? You can either get the players you have better or go out and get better players. Is that accurate? And where are you with your coaching philosophy now? New program, UConn, you come in. What is the first thing you're going to tell your guys? Have you had a meeting with everybody?
I haven't. Right now, I'm kind of just in a
fly on the wall.
Yeah, I'm watching. I'm observing, and I'll have my first team meeting with these men next Sunday. And that's interesting. You asked me that because I've been giving it a lot of thought. What I want to start with. Because I think
can you share something?
Well, I mean, I want to share how important I think our mindset is. I want to talk to them about, you know, our core covenants, the 4 things that I think we all have to commit to in order for us to be a great team, and that 4 things have to do with, you know, with our being selfless and, you know, men of service, with our work ethic, with our mindset, in our mental, physical, and emotional toughness, and things like that. And I'm going to talk about mindset, and I'm going to talk about some of the players like you that I've had the great fortune of being around and how much I learned. It's funny, everyone always asks me, you know, what coaches influenced me the most. And of course, I was with Bill Walsh, and I was with my dad and many others that were really good, but it was the players I was fortunate to be around, men like you, that really taught me the most. And I'm not blowing smoke, you know, when I talk about learning about work ethic and attention to detail, and taking pride in your performance and routine, watching you come in and do those things with Tommy Barnhart, it was like, this is really something. People have, I think, a complete, and I hope it's changed, but they used to have a skewed opinion of what kickers do.
Oh yeah.
You don't just run out there and put the ball down and kick it through the uprights or kick it out of the end zone. There's so much that goes into it. And the only way you get to the Hall of Fame is that you commit to those things. I'm going to talk about those things with these young men. Work ethic, mindset, our standard, never compromising our standard. And what is our standard going to be? What do they want it to be? What do they?
I think you're going to have to identify that, right? You're going to have to somehow. May I add one that you feel? I'm not saying you're going to use it, but one element in my life that has made a huge difference in the way I performed, the way I looked at performance, the way I looked at failing and getting back up and then ultimately succeeding, is to embrace, and Frank Gans Sr. talks about this a lot, the world of suck.
Mm-hmm.
The world of suck's a military term, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's basic training. You're going through 2-a-days in football. But the world of suck is a place you don't want to stay long, but you have to embrace it. If you embrace the uncomfortable, and I think Mark Patterson, our good friend, can speak to this with the 7 summits and climbing Mount Everest with no oxygen and so forth. But the time we really improve as performers, as athletes, it's not when our hands are above our head. It's when our back's against the wall.
Yeah.
That's when the true character of a man comes out. That's the true competitiveness, is what is he going to do in that moment? He may be laying on the ground, but is he getting back up, and is he going to go and he's going to continue incrementally to get better? I think therein lies the secret sauce for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Morten, I'm in complete concert with you there. I mean, I believe wholeheartedly in what you just said. And I mean, there's
failure's good. Failure's good.
You learn from failure, and I've failed many, many times. And I think that's why I'm so prepared right now to do what I'm doing, because of the failures that I've had some successes, and learned from those. But the failures have mostly affected me mostly, I think. And, there's a saying, hard things are hard. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, military, and Jocko Wilco, the Jocko, the SEAL, and he says, he has a saying, good, hey, my left hamstring hurts and I'm sore and I got to go live good. The mission's off point. Good.
Good.
It gives us a chance to prove who we are.
Yeah.
They say adversity reveals character. And I really believe that. And I think adversity builds men. And adversity gives us a sense of confidence and self-worth and a sense of reward. And I believe exactly what you said. As a matter of fact, I'm so glad you're recording this, because I'm going to get the copy of it and go back and look. No, I mean this, Morten, because I can go back and I can look at that and look at what we've talked about and write the things down we talked about and remind myself, these are some things I need to talk to these kids about. And man, embrace the suck. Embrace it.
Yeah, man. Embrace the suck.
Things are hard, it makes us who we are. I'm with you, Morten.
You earned the right to play the game at its highest level.
Yes.
Every single day on the practice field.
Yeah.
You don't show up Saturday afternoon for 1 p.m. Eastern kick in Connecticut no. I don't even know what's the town?
Hartford, Connecticut. Yeah, right outside of Hartford.
Yeah.
You're right, Morten. You got
to earn the right.
Yeah, and you know what else you have to earn is you have to earn the respect of your teammates. And you have to earn, you remember my foundation was called the Count on Me Foundation. And I used to say, you have to earn the right to say to your teammate, count on me, and make it mean something. Anyone can say it, but it's about doing it. And I mean, I think we're so in concert and all these things we're talking about. I'm excited to share them with the team. I might have to throw them this pod.
Well, I can always come up there.
I would love to have you up. I mean, I really think that men like you are underutilized in the college community, especially because there's so many players that I've been able to coach. And college players are going to listen to pro players and former pro players more than they're going to listen to coaches, because you've done what they want to do and you've done it at the highest level. And so having someone like you come up and talk to a team and let them see your passion, hear your words, I mean, those are just valuable times for these kids.
That'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun to do. And when you wear a gold jacket and there's a bust in Canton the last 40,000 years, that carries a little bit of cachet.
Oh man, I tell you earned every single bit of what you received. You earned it. Nobody gave it to Morten Andersen. Morten Andersen went out and he earned it.
Yeah. Hey, a little name game for you. It's really hard. I got a ton of names because there's so many people in your life, coaches, players, as you mentioned, that has touched you and you've touched them. And when you're lifer in coaching, I mean, it's hard to avoid, but I want to get your take on your dad and whatever you're willing to share about Jim Mora Sr. He to me, a great man. Hard to get to know, but when you get to know him, man, loyal guy. That's me. Okay.
Yeah.
As a son, where you're sitting, how do you describe your dad?
Well, I love him to death, and I'm so grateful he's still here to share his lesson with me. Talked to him this morning. He is loyal. He is passionate. He is dedicated. He is tough. He has empathy. He is very sensitive. People don't know that he's sensitive. He has a great sense of humor. He cares about people. He has regrets like we all do. I think, some of his regrets are, like I said, that he didn't get closer to his players. I think some of his regrets are that, he had those, sometimes with the media that we all love now, those were tough times for him then. And I think he has regrets that he, as a pro football coach and a college football coach, as a head coach, he won close to 200 games. Yet people remember the playoffs,
Yeah.
Tell you what's,
coulda, woulda, shoulda.
yeah, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But that that made a difference, I think. But you know what he is, Morten? He's just a good guy. And you said I think you've gotten to know him in a little bit different light now. And was he at your induction ceremony?
Yeah,
I think he was.
He was there. Oh yeah, he was there for sure.
He had several players going to the Hall of Fame, and I think that you and maybe Ricky are the only ones that he's gone to, and I think that just shows how much he respects you. But I'm lucky to have a dad like my dad.
Well, you mentioned regret, and I had debated whether I was going to ask you this question. If you're uncomfortable answering, just say I'm not going to answer that.
No,
but
I'll answer.
Did you regret when you made the comments late in your Falcons about taking the Washington job? And do you think that's what got you fired?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what got me fired. I lost the trust of the team. I lost the trust of the owner. I lost the trust of the fans. I let myself down. I let a lot of people down, and I affected a lot of lives. When a head coach gets fired, it's not just him getting fired, but it's his entire staff that's going to have to make changes. And I think as I went back and looked at it, there was like 40 children that ended up having to leave the school they were in and move to another school in another town or another state. And so to this day, I can tell you it was the worst decision I've ever made. And it was the worst time of my life. And the thing that I regret the most and the thing that impacted me the most, that I'm most ashamed of, I always talk to our players about being smart, thinking twice, acting once, being thoughtful before they make comments. And I'm sitting on the phone with, some buddies from Seattle on the radio, not realizing that my words carried weight. And I do think that's why I got fired, because I think we had a chance to win that year. And I couldn't recover. I had to walk in.
I was there. We weren't mathematically out of it.
I know we weren't, but I had to walk in that team meeting room and, explain to you guys,
I remember
how I could say that. And you know what? There was no explanation for it, Morten. It weighs heavy on me every single day, and people don't understand it. They think, oh, you just got fired. No, a bunch of people had to change their lives because of me being not smart enough to say the right thing. So I've learned.
I'm glad I asked it. Part of healing too is forgiveness. And I talked to Mike about that a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
Is the fact that he's got to get to a place where he understands most people will forgive him, but some maybe never will. I'm of the opinion that forgiveness heals and moves us forward.
Absolutely.
And we all make mistakes. I could sit here and give you 10 mistakes I've made that have affected people as well. So it's not that at all. I was just I never talked to you about it, and you were gone anyway. And I came back for one more year, but I'm glad you shared that. I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty on it. So, okay, let's go to Steve Mariucci. This guy.
I love Mooch. He taught me a lot about balance in my job. I think my dad was pretty balanced, but I was his son. With Mooch, he taught me about being optimistic. He used to have a saying, it's not what you teach, it's what you emphasize. And I still use that. A lot of things come out of our mouth. Yeah. We teach a lot of things, but the things that are going to make the most impression, what we really continually emphasize. He used to always say, when you coach a player and they make a mistake, don't ask them, what were you doing? Say, hey, tell me what you were thinking there. Rather than assaulting them with and questioning their intelligence, it was more like, hey, explain to me what you were thinking, or why did you do that?
Yeah, help me understand.
Yeah, try it this way next time. and it was an encouraging voice rather than a discouraging voice, and that didn't mean Mooch wouldn't jump your tail, because he would, but he's like this other saying: if you step on a man's shoes, leave a shine. Before you walk away, make sure you step down or you bend down and shine his shoes back up. And Mooch was like that, and I love him for that. I talked to him the other day. I mean, he's
gold.
Yeah.
I know you got to go. I got one more. You're a defensive coach. Yep. Let's face it, you can never take the defense out of a guy.
Yep.
And it's a bunch of wild dogs running around back there, reacting and trying to get to that ball, man. No one better, no group better than what you had in New Orleans with the Dome Patrol.
Oh,
With Vaughn Johnson, Pat Swilling, Ricky Jackson, well, the late Vaughn Johnson, and the
yeah,
late Sam Mills, who I
yeah.
believe should be in the Hall of Fame. Do
I
you
agree.
agree?
Yeah, I
Were
agree.
they the greatest linebacking group you've ever seen?
Yes, they were. 4 playing together, outstanding. I had a group at UCLA. I'm not going to put them in the Dome Patrol category, but they're all playing in the NFL, and they were all first or second round picks. Anthony Barr, who's played in Pro Bowls. Eric Kendricks, who played in Pro Bowls. They both played for the Vikings. Then Miles Jack, who plays for Jacksonville. When we had those 3 running around, and we played a 4-3 that year, they were pretty good. But I don't think you can make any comparisons anywhere to the Dome Patrol. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that would disagree with me, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, they're amazing. Remember the poster with the sunglasses? They stood outside the Superdome.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
and
it
you
was great.
right about Sam. We called him, as you know, the field
Field
mouse.
mouse, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the field mouse. He should be in the hall. My dad will tell you to this day that he's one of the top 2 or 3 football players he ever coached ever in his life. So
Yeah.
he's coached some pretty good ones. You, Peyton Manning, a lot of others. So Sam's right up there.
You know, it's football has no memory, but what I take away from the game, just a couple of closing thoughts, and I'll get to you. You can offer whatever you want, but football has no memory. But we as players, as coaches, we're the ones that have to carry that torch, that burden, if you will, that mandate, and we have to create and make memories together. It's a relationship business, football. Oh my goodness, is it ever?
Yeah.
It's who you know, and it's what you impart of wisdom and love and energy and passion moving forward. As a coach, that's the greatest thing you can give. And you, my friend, have done it in spades along the way, for the good, the bad, the ugly. I don't care. You're real, and I love that. I love you for that. I really do. You're a transparent guy, and the human quality I love, and I feel lucky to have you as a friend, my friend. So.
Well, Morten, that's humbling. And I feel the same about you. And, it's amazing how we've been able to stay in each other's lives all this time and not talk too often, but it's still the same feeling that I get from the, and I appreciate you. And I'm going to go get on this airplane, and I'm inspired now, and I'm not.
Let's go.
Coach.
Let's go, Huskies.
Let's go, Huskies. That's right, baby. I love hearing you say that. All right, Morten. Hey,
have fun. You. Be safe, and I'm here for you. All right.
I'll take care.